Thank you all for participating with the Western Riverside Council of Governments Executive Committee meeting. And at this time, we will call it to order. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And if Supervisor Washington can please leave us.
Did you say leave us or lead us?
Lead. You just want me to say leave, huh?
Any invitation. Please join me by standing, placing your right hand over your heart as we pledge allegiance to our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor. Janice, can we please conduct roll call?
Absolutely. When I call your jurisdiction, if you would please state your name. And Chris, I muted the conference room during the pledge, so you'll have to open that back up. City of Banning,
David Happy.
Beaumont,
Mike Laura.
Calamasa,
Wendy Hewitt.
Canyon Lake,
Yeah, wealthy.
Corona,
Jackie Casillas.
Eastville,
Christian Dinko.
Hemet,
Russ Brown.
Haruba Valley,
Chris Barajas.
Lake Elsinore, Lake Elsinore, Mr. Tisdale, okay, we'll come back. Menifee,
Natalie Springer.
Moreno Valley,
Mayor Gutierrez for Councilmember Delgado.
thank you, sir. Welcome. Murrieta,
Lori Stone.
Norco,
Kevin Bash.
Paris,
Rita Rogers.
Riverside,
Ronaldo Fierro.
San Jacinto,
Ruiz.
Temecula,
James Stewart.
Wildemar,
Ben Benoit.
County District 1,
Kevin Jeffries.
District 2,
Aaron Spiegel.
District 3.
Charles H. Washington Jr.
Welcome, sir. District
Thank you.
5,
Jeff Witt.
Eastern Municipal Water District,
Bill Pauley.
Western Municipal Water District,
Brenda Denstead.
Riverside County Superintendent of Schools, WRCOG TAC Chair,
Jeff Van Wagenen.
and City of Lake Elsinore.
Brian Tisdale. Sorry about that.
Thank you, sir. That concludes roll call and we have quorum.
Well, I was already on the next page. Thank you, Janice. At this time, the members of the public can address this committee regarding any items listed on the agenda. And members of the public will have opportunity to speak on agendized items at the time we pull them for discussion. No action can be taken on these items that are not listed on the agenda. And we are asking 3 minutes limit. Do we have anybody wishing to address the board on this any item?
Madam Chair, we do. We have Arnold San Miguel from SCAG.
Mr. Arnold.
Good, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Chair Spiegel and members of the Executive Committee. Just wanted to remind everybody that registration is now open for the 57th Regional Conference General Assembly to be held May 5th and 6th at the JW Marriott Desert Springs Resort and Spa in Palm Desert. This 2-day event will focus on solution-oriented discussions to address our most pressing problems in the region. If you register by Thursday, March 31st and use the code EARLYBIRD, you get $100 off the general admission price. The event is free for elected officials and city managers in the region. For more information, visit us at scag.ca.gov/GA2022. I'll put that in the chat if I can. And then please note, if your city has not yet designated your General Assembly delegate and alternate for the General Assembly, please do that as soon as possible. And then very quickly, in case you were not aware, we do have the 2022 SCAG Scholarship Program. Applications are available now. It's a $4,000 scholarship for 7 high school seniors or community college students in the region. And that deadline is April 1st. Thank you, Chairwoman Spiegel.
Okay. Chandra Richards.
Good afternoon. My name is
Dr. Chandra Richards, and I'm an agricultural land acquisitions academic coordinator working at the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources. It's a wing of UC Cooperative Extension. I was hired to support the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Grant Program across Southern California. The SALT program aims to fight climate change by protecting our prime farmlands and encouraging compact transit-oriented communities. As we all know, the loss of prime California farmlands is a threat to economic vitality and also environmental sustainability of the state. And the SALT program uses cap and trade proceeds to protect agricultural lands at the urban rural fringe and also on the outskirts of cities from development or conversion to non-agricultural uses. The guidelines were just released about a week ago, and there will be a review period for the duration of the month, and then the program will open up by about June or July for pre-proposals for both planning and acquisition grants. If you're interested in applying, please contact me and I'll put my information in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to address this body on items not on the agenda?
I have no requests. I see no hands raised.
Okay, with that, we will move on. And Arnold does have the information in the chat box if anybody has any questions for Arnold. Okay, we will now move to consent. And at this time, we can have one motion unless anybody has any items to pull. Do we have anybody wishing to pull an item?
Committee member Hewitt has her hand raised.
Yes, I'd like to pull 5G, please.
5G, okay. Is there any other item to pull?
Move approval of the balance.
We have a second.
Paris will second.
Thank you. Can we have roll call, please?
City of Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Yes.
Corona,
Yes.
Eastville. City
Eastville,
of,
yes.
thank you, sir. Hemet,
Yes.
Rupa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Murrieta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar,
Yes.
County District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Eastern Municipal Water District,
Yes.
and Western Municipal Water District.
Yes.
That concludes the roll call vote and they pass unanimously.
Thank you, Janice. Okay, we are now on items for discussion. We have the first one is Cal City's activities update. And
Madam
I-
Chair,
Yes,
I'm sorry, Committee Member Hewitt pulled item 5G.
we don't do that later in the agenda.
Generally, we do it at the time of the consent calendar, but it's your prerogative.
We'll do 5G. Ms. Hewitt.
Yes, I just had a couple questions. I know they did the RFDP, was already done. We were interested to see if they got any other bids and how they put it out there.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Chris Bray, Deputy Executive Director. The way we advertised this RFP was we are now a member of the Planet Bids system. What that does is we put the announcement out there. We received 7 different firms registered to receive the RFP, downloaded the RFP. However, only 2 firms submitted RFPs. They are both of the firms that are currently working for WRCOG and have a substantial amount of experience working with the TUMP program. Both of their proposals were reviewed and found to be acceptable, and therefore that's why we're recommending them. But we did publicly advertised the RFP through our planted bid service and did make it available to all interested vendors.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, do we want to move that motion, that item?
Motion to approve item A.
I have motion by Paris and second by Hammett. City of Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Yes.
Corona,
Yes.
Eastvale,
Yes.
Hammett,
Yes.
Rupa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Murrieta,
Yes.
Norco,
yes,
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar,
Yes.
County District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Eastern Municipal Water District. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is a TUMP item and the water districts do not vote on TUMP items. That item passes unanimously.
Okay. Now we will move to our reports. And if Erin Sassy is still there,
I'm here.
we can ask her to give a list of or share our activities and any information for a presentation.
Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for having me here today. Really appreciate the opportunity to give you an update. Just some bills that I wanted to highlight for you. One, our board recently took a support position for AB 1599. Kylie, this would repeal Prop 47 with the exception of those crimes for possession of concentrated cannabis. There's a lot of bills that have been introduced this year that reduce some of the Prop 47 crimes that really are trying to combat some of the various thefts that we've been having with our retailers, with vehicles. Our board didn't want to have a piecemeal approach, so really they decided that repealing Prop 47 would be the best course of action. So I did send out a sample support letter for all of you. I know some of you have already sent that in. So if that's something you want to support, please get that letter in ASAP as the hearings are starting soon. Another bill that we are supporting this year is AB 1985. You all know that our 1383 organic waste requirements are in the process. We have to comply with 1383. This bill would basically create a statewide database maintained by the Department of Resources, Recycling and Recovery to connect some of your jurisdictions with companies that may need some of this organic waste so that there's basically information on how people can access it, because it's going to be really challenging to make sure that we're finding places to use all of the organic waste. So that's something we're supporting this year. We're looking for feedback on AB 2179. This has to do with development fees and charges. Basically, this bill, so current law prohibits a local agency from imposing fees or charges on a residential development for the construction of public improvements or facilities from requiring the payment of fees and charges until the date of final inspection or the date of certification of occupancy is issued. So whichever is first. This bill would prohibit non-compliant local agencies from imposing fees or charges until 20 years from the date of final inspection or the date of certificate of occupancy is issued, whichever occurs first. So if your cities have any feedback on this, please send it my way. A couple other bills I wanted to highlight. I know there's been several bills over the last few years that have to do with accessory dwelling units. There's another one this year. So SB 897 would increase the maximum height limitation for ADUs to 25 feet. It was originally 16 feet. So this is a pretty big expansion of the height that would be allowed for your ADU. So definitely would encourage you to all look at that bill. And then also there's another one, SB 1466. I know that the loss of redevelopment was a hard hit for all of us. This bill is bringing back a community development investment program that would help with your affordable housing needs. So SB 1466 is something we will be supporting. I definitely would encourage all of you to do so. And lastly, this is a bill that we're likely sponsoring. It's AB 662. It would create some suicide prevention resources for firefighters and EMTs. So that's definitely something that could be helpful for all of your jurisdictions as well. We have our division meeting on Monday, March 14th, so a week from today, from 5 to 7. This is going to be a virtual meeting, likely our last virtual meeting. But at this meeting, we are inviting all of the candidates running for Riverside County offices to come and speak to the division, more just for educational purposes. So I definitely want to encourage all of you to participate in that. Just happy to be here again today. Thank you for having me, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Aaron? Aaron, I do. If anybody has their hand up, they can, I don't see it now. On, was it AB 867? Is that the one with the raising the dwelling units?
SB 897.
897. Okay, my question on that, is the league supporting it or are they opposing?
No, we will oppose.
Well, I didn't hear you say that, so I just want to.
We don't have a position yet, but we will be opposing that one.
Yeah, that's quite a significant difference. Almost a second story, not quite, but close. Matt.
Hey, Aaron, 2179, the diff charges one. Are you reaching out to community development directors as well to get their feedback?
Yeah, our lobbyists will be reaching out to them too. I just know that that was one they flagged for us.
Okay, so really fast, can you just reiterate, they want to, part of this is to postpone the requirements of paying impact fee charges for up to 20 years?
Yes.
What are you hearing about that? Because as I understand it, I mean, impact fees, technically impacts occur when people live there. So you're postponing the impact, the mitigation for the impacts. How does this, this seems counteractive to CEQA?
I don't want to speak for the author because I don't exactly know what he's thinking, but it seems that Sacramento definitely has an appetite to reduce fees, limit fees. I mean, every year, as you all know, there's legislation that makes it harder for you to all do your job. So this just seems like one more of those.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron, can you just confirm, is it 20, what is it?
2179.
2179?
Yeah, AB 2179, Grayson.
Thank you.
And I know our Jason, our lobbyist for housing, has already reached out to his office and is talking to them.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else have a question? I see no other hands raised. Okay, seeing none, this is a receive and file. We move on to 6B. Thank you very much, Ms. Sassy. Never mind, Miss Sassy, we'll keep it that. 6B is IREN status and activities updates, and Casey Daly.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Casey Daly here, Director of Energy and Environmental Programs at WRCOG. I'm here today to give an update on IREN activities, as well as we have one requested action to approve a professional services agreement. Next slide, please. So just some brief background on IREN. We began working on this effort, this collective effort between WRCOG, CVAG, and our friends at San Bernardino COG back at the end of 2018. In February of 2021, the completed business plan or application was submitted to the CPUC for consideration. Happy to say that in mid to late November, our business plan was approved by the CPUC for 3 distinct sectors: public sector codes and standards, workforce education and training. And then shortly after that, we released an RFP to help identify and bring on a consultant to help us develop an implementation plan, which is one of the required filings, along with program launch services that will extend, for a number of years out beyond right now. And then finally, in January, we received one proposal from Frontier Energy and Blue Point Planning. And so the last thing that should be on here is that this past February, February 9th, this item was heard by the Admin and Finance Committee, and it was recommended for approval to go to exec. Next slide, please. So just kind of some high-level overviews of IREN. This is the approved business plan budget. As I mentioned before, we submitted for 3 different categories: public sector, workforce education, training, and codes and standards. I'm happy to say that like I said, our proposal was approved for the $65.5 million from 2022 through 2027. Next slide, please. One of the things that we decided that we thought would be helpful to socialize the REN as we talk to member agencies is to provide a sampling of some direct benefits that would go towards each member agency that participates in IREN. So really this should say each participating member agency instead of city. But you can see we have within the public sector, we've got budget to provide up to $25,000 for each city for technical services. So if you're looking to do energy audits or upgrade a community center, the REN will have resources at no cost that you can utilize. We'll also, through public sector and codes and standards, have energy modeling services, benchmarking services that will be made available with assistance. We'll be having training programs, quarterly training sessions to provide updates to both city staff, county staff, but also to the building community on updates to Title 24. And then we are looking to modify or replicate, I should say, the fellowship program to create a working title of REN terms. But essentially this would be a fellowship program where individuals could be placed within local jurisdictions, very much like how we do things with our fellowship program, except all of these individuals would be tasked with working on something specifically related to energy. Next slide, please. So this is just a kind of a snapshot of what this year looks like, calendar year looks like. We've got 2 required filings that the CPUC requires us to do. One is the joint cooperation memo, which was already filed back in late January. The second required filing this year is the implementation plan, due July 1st, and that's what we're looking to approve the professional services agreement with the consultant to help us develop that. And then underneath that on the bottom, these are some of the non-CPUC required filings, including a master agreement with WRCOG, CVAG, and San Bernardino COG, a charter, program agreement, as well as program implementation. So I'll be talking about some of these in a little bit more detail on the next slide, please. So we have these are the 3 required filings from the CPUC. The JCM, Joint Cooperation Memo, has already been submitted. The annual budget advice letter is not due until September of next year because we were just approved, so we don't have to submit it this September. But the one we do have to submit is the implementation plan, and that's due July 1st. Next slide, please. Here's a list of some of the non-required filings. For those that are on admin and finance, Wednesday, we will be having an in-depth discussion on the governance and operations charter. We are working right now with Gas Company and Edison on the program agreement. We had intended to bring both the charter and the memorandum of agreement together, but given that there were some references to this program agreement, we decided to hold off until we had all the documents ready at the same time. And then what we're here to talk about today is the professional services agreement for implementation plan and program launch services. As I mentioned at the beginning, we released the RFP in late November. We had a pre-proposal meeting on December 9th. We had Q&A and responses to questions posted December 15th. Proposals were due January 4th. We had 1 responsive bid, and that's from Blue Point Planning and Frontier Energy. And then finally, on February 9th, the Admin and Finance Committee received this presentation and recommended the approval of the agreement to the Executive Committee. Next slide, please. I'm going to ask to skip this slide and just go to the next slide. So with that, our requested action is on the screen. That concludes my presentation, Madam Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Laura?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Casey, is this this company, is this going to be a drawdown as they perform work for us, or is just $750,000 out front?
Oh, no, sir. It'll be a draw. The agreement itself actually goes through 2024, I believe, sir.
Okay.
So it's a multi-year agreement, and they'll be billing based on time and materials, sir.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Casey.
Yes, sir.
Any other additional questions? I see none. What is the pleasure of this board?
Group of Valley moves to approve.
Sounds
One
good.
second.
Like 11/30/21.
I have a motion by Hooper Valley and a second by San Jacinto.
PDS? Are they the Caltrans plans or? Well, they were the ones.
City of Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Yes.
Corona,
Yes.
Eastvale,
Yes.
Hemet,
Yes.
Hooper Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Murrieta,
yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar,
Yes.
County District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Eastern Municipal Water District,
Yes.
and Western Municipal Water District.
Yes.
That concludes roll call for that item and it passes unanimously.
Okay,
you very
we are.
much.
Thank you, Casey. And now we move on to item 6C, second quarter draft budget amendment for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. Andrew Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, all. Next slide, please. So starting with a brief background, during fiscal year 2021, WRCOG's partner in the residential PACE program, Renovate America, terminated their hero product and subsequently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in December of 2020, effectively ending the program. Additionally, the executive committee took action to terminate the remaining residential PACE administration agreements with the other two companies that had partnered with WRCOG. Under the terms of the Renovate contract, WRCOG was indemnified from a wide range of legal issues. When Renovate filed for bankruptcy protections, they also stopped honoring that indemnity agreement, which effectively forced WRCOG to take on new and previously unanticipated litigation responsibilities and expenses. Due to this, the program has incurred significantly more legal costs related to the Renovate bankruptcy, as well as legal costs associated with existing assessments that have deemed to be fraudulent and have been paid off by WRCOG. So as the budget was developed for fiscal year 21-22, $750,000 was budgeted for legal costs for the program, which was a notable increase from fiscal year 2021 of about $100,000 starting. However, as we ended fiscal year 2021, those legal costs actually eclipsed about $1 million. As we worked to put together a budget for this fiscal year, we did anticipate the legal cases and associated costs would level off. However, that was not the case, but recent trends do seem to indicate some leveling off. They just seem like they didn't occur as early as we originally anticipated. So with that said, expenditures incurred through December are approximately $930,000 against an original budget of $750,000. And what we're bringing forward today is an amendment of $900,000 to bring that total budget up to about $1.65 million, anticipating roughly $100,000 a month in legal expenses for the remainder of the year. Now, while this is a significant increase to expenditures, we're also bringing forward two budget amendments that'll cover this expenditure increase. Next slide, please. So during fiscal year 2021, there was a sharp increase in early payoffs. This could have potentially been due to market conditions. Home values have increased substantially in price over this past year, increasing equity, and rates have been hitting all-time lows. So this may have factored in to some of these payoffs. People could have potentially done refis, pulled out a HELOC, and paid off their PACE assessment at a higher interest rate, and then rolled that into their mortgage. So the reason why this is important is because payoff fees are tied with these assessments that WRCOG receives. And this trend has continued into fiscal year 21-22. While we expected this trend to continue, the revenue number was originally based on the existing payoff fees at the time. However, they were increased in July of 21 to adequately reflect the time and costs associated with processing these payoffs. So it's anticipated that revenues will exceed their budgeted amount. We've conservatively estimated this at $250,000, but we'll likely come back in the fourth quarter to pick up any additional revenues once those numbers become actualized. And additionally, the program was terminated in December of 2020, but there was one final batch of projects that were completed, but the associated revenues were delayed as a part of the litigation process. As things progressed through the case, WRCOG was able to negotiate a percentage payout for the final HERO closing. That amount totaled to about $680,000, which will bring additional revenue to the program, but it's being seen as an offset to these increased legal expenses. So in total, there would be a net increase in revenues to the HERO program of about $30,000. And I will pause right there to take any questions related to HERO and then move on to the REN.
I see no hands raised.
I got one. I gotta find my hand here. All right. May I go, Chair?
Yes, please.
Seems like a really big jump. We first budgeted 750. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And we were over by how much currently? We're by about 200,000.
By about 200,000 currently, yes.
And now we want to increase it an additional 900,000.
Yes.
Why would we anticipate that much of an increase? Do we have that many more claims against WRCOG currently?
A lot of that stuff gets rolled into closed session that I can't really talk about, but as some of the board members are aware, we do roll in through a lot of claims through closed session, approve and pay those.
Okay, that's right. I was involved in the closed sessions. I just didn't have my numbers with me, so I should have probably made some notes.
Yeah, so it's in relation to that, Chair or Mr. Dinko, and also just the legal costs associated with that. We did anticipate that the numbers would start to go down. However, at least the last few months have shown a trajectory going downward. It's just, I don't think we hit the mark as early as we originally thought. So.
Okay, I could have asked this question in closed session, but thank you for the explanation.
Andrew, my question is, what is our projected increase to the budget, and where is all that coming from? We only have so much, and my concern is this going to end? Do we have an anticipation of how much more?
Well, there is an outstanding.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. Madam Chair, that would be, again, more appropriate for discussion in closed session if we're discussing the active litigation and claims. You each do have. You each received a spreadsheet with all of the active cases and claims as part of your closed session packet. We can't talk about that now, but you each can see that. And if there's a desire, we only have 3 cases listed on the closed session agenda today. But if there's a desire to list more cases at the next meeting, we can discuss the existing, we can discuss as many of the existing cases as you wish to.
And Madam Chair, if I could, just to reiterate sort of the crux of your question, in addition to the expenses going up, this item also includes a fairly significant increase in the revenues going up because revenues were significantly higher than anticipated as well.
Well, I know some of this is going to be closed session, but the comment that I have is not a closed session. It's just because we have revenues going up, doesn't seem like we should like stage it for a payout either. And it has nothing to do with the closed session material that we discuss. It's just a philosophical concept that just because we had an increase in revenues doesn't mean we should more than double what we've already done. But those are just my my passing thoughts. Thank you.
And I have to say, that's why I went on a little bit more than Mr. Dinko did. I have absolute agreement. And when in closed session, we're not talking out big picture, we're talking individual cases. And mine is, we need to have a big picture to continue to approve both the revenues and the expenses, but to get an idea, you know, how much more and how much more can we, without getting the big picture. We're doing item by item. You know, when we go to the bank, we want to cash a check. It's not item by item. You have to have the big picture to know how much you can pull out. And that's my concern, is that we stay within that. And I trust that Kurt's got a handle on this, but I think the questions do need to be asked. And maybe when you bring them in closed session, we have a picture, a big picture of what's left, what's anticipated, so that when we make these decisions, we're not just making, you know, erroneous decisions without having any tie to the budget. Mr. Tisdale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my first comment is, I think that Kurt or Steve should have been the one introducing this. I know that we have a budget guy and you know, he's got to ask for budget increases and stuff. But when we're asking for $1 million for something, I think it should have been brought up a different way. And again, I think Kurt and then Steve. And so I'm very concerned, and I'm very concerned when we have revenues went up also. Okay, I hate statements like that, because I want to know exactly where this money's coming from. So I propose that we put this off until next week so we can discuss this in closed session, since part of this is the agenda item on there anyway. We can at least have an idea on where our money is going to be spent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any more questions?
All right.
What's the pleasure? Are you done, Andrew?
I do have a much lighter subject, the REN, to talk about. Okay. I just wanted to pause on this one.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So on to a much lighter subject, the Regional Energy Network, or REN. So Casey's done a great job at explaining what a REN is and what WRCOG's IREN has planned to do for the Inland Empire. As Casey noted, we've now received approval from the CPUC on a 6-year, $65 million budget. First question might be, well, where is all this money coming from? Every time you pay your utility bill, part of it is set aside to administer programs. That's known as the public goods charge. And that is what the REN will be doing. So this actually is money coming from our residents or our ratepayers. And another question might be, well, how is the IREN different from WRCOG's past energy programs? So while WRCOG has administered large energy programs in the past, I wanted to make one clear distinction compared to these previously administered programs. This isn't going to run so much as a business, and that's to say, we're not making any decisions regarding the revenue sides of things. We're not figuring out how to generate more money for the program, expand our footprint, increase our rates, etc. All of that's already determined for us. Our work is a lot more pure in that our job in this new program is to administer and see our objectives through, which is much more in line with what we've done historically as an agency. Next slide, please. So WRCOG has partnered with its neighboring COGs, but WRCOG will be acting as the administrative lead for the entire IREN, which means the money will be flowing through us. So there will be some pass-through expenses that will be incurred by the other COGs that will flow through us. If anyone's familiar with the REP program, which is a partnership with the gas company Edison, we had a similar structure where we acted as the fiscal or the administrative agent in that partnership as well. So we're currently working with the other COGs on an MOA and governance and operations charter, as Casey noted. For staffing, we have approved budget by the CPUC for 4 program managers and 6 staff analyst level positions, along with some budgetary support for existing administrative and executive positions. As I previously noted, we're in partnership with the other COGs, so they'll each be hiring their own program manager and staff analysts. They won't all be under WRCOG. Next slide, please. So as previously noted, there's going to be 3 distinct areas where the REN will be focusing its activities in: the public sector, codes and standards, and workforce education and training. What you're seeing here is the REN budget across all 6 years and where things are currently budgeted. And I do want to note that any unspent funds in the year, and the REN goes based off a calendar year for what it's worth, can be rolled over into the next year as long as it's within the 6-year approved budget period. As you can see under the column for 2022, the REN's annual budget is approximately $10 million. And the amendment being brought forward today is for approximately half of that as we went live in the middle of the fiscal year. So within the 3 sectors, we'll be working in public, workforce education, and training, and codes and standards. Within each of those sectors, there's 4 main categories. There's administration, marketing and outreach, direct implementation, and direct implementation incentives, which are only under the public sectors. If you were to drill down even further within each of these sectors, they're broken out into 2 main programs within each sector. And if you drill down even further from there, there are specific activities within each of these programs. Now, we did go a couple of levels further with the finance directors, but if anyone is interested in seeing more specifics, we'd be happy to share them with you. So next slide, please. So what we're bringing forward today is for the second quarter of fiscal year 21-22, a total increase in revenues of approximately $5 million in expenditures for the IREN going live. And what we're also bringing forward today is a increase for the HERO program of approximately $930,000 in revenues and $900,000 in expenditures for a net increase of approximately $30,000 for the HERO program. So next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and there is a requested action.
Brenda Denstedt, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was trying to clarify whether or not Mr. Tisdale's request was a motion that he made, and if it was in fact a motion to carry this over to the Admin and Finance Committee meeting for a little bit more in-depth discussion on some of the budget amendments, I would be the second on that motion if we could get clarity on that.
Madam Chair.
The motion was not made because it was not the time, because the report wasn't done, but now is the time. Did you, Brian?
Madam Chair, I will make that motion that we table it or we send it back to the Admin and Finance.
And I will second.
Sorry, if I could, Madam Chair, just for clarity, is the expectation for the upcoming Admin and Finance, which is on this coming Wednesday? And the only reason I ask it, if so, we'll have to consult Mr. Devon to determine how to make that happen.
We could agendize it perhaps as a special meeting. But as far as getting it onto the agenda as part of the regular meeting, we're too late to do that. So we have a potential to do that as a special admin meeting at, maybe after the 12 o'clock meeting at 1 o'clock, but that's up to you, Mr.
Steve, couldn't we add the item to Wednesday's agenda as an urgency item?
I don't feel comfortable doing that. It's not something that it didn't really arise subsequent to the publication of the agenda. I know the desire to go back to the admin committee did, but I don't feel comfortable in suggesting that this would be a true urgency matter.
Andrew, my question is, would you be able to get that prepared for Wednesday?
And just to be clear on what you're asking for is a breakdown of the legal expenses incurred thus far and what we anticipate to pay out through the remainder of the year.
Brian, is that what you're intending?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, some of it possibly could be answered when we go into closed session, because we're going to talk about legal cases. But I think there's some pieces that that I'm not comfortable with. And whether it goes back to admin this month or it goes back next month, I mean, do we need to rush and make this big budget adjustment? I mean, we got over $6 million, if I'm not mistaken, that we're adding for a budget adjustment. And, you know, does it need to be done right now, or can it wait?
Kurt, I'm going to defer to you on that.
Certainly. Andrew, you may know better than I do. Any concerns with pushing back a month?
I'm sorry, what was that, Kurt? Pushing that to April?
Sure. Are there any impacts that we need to be aware of to push back either the REN or the HERO budget amendments?
I mean, was there anything on the REN that we needed to clarify on, or was it just the HERO portion of this?
Well, that's the board piece, but just as far as impact. So if the board were to decide to push back one or both components of this, are there any impacts that we would need to know about?
I mean, for the REN, we're ultimately seeking authority so we can start spending some of this money. What Casey brought forward today was the PSA for consulting expenses.
So Kurt, the board has already voted on the REN, the other part of it. So I don't have a problem if we can separate the budget to do that, and I'll amend my motion that we just take back the legal pieces of it.
Madam Chair, can I just interject a timing issue? We're talking about not bringing it to Wednesday, 2 days from now's admin committee meeting agenda, but we have another exec committee meeting before we have another admin committee meeting. So we'll get to April's admin exec committee meeting and still not have dealt with this. So perhaps we should think about how we solve that problem. But I'm with Mr. Tisdale. I don't want to vote on rushing into this. So
Andrew, at the last admin and finance meeting, you presented, was this the exact same item you presented already?
Yes, I did. I presented this.
So for some reason, it wasn't flagged at the last meeting, and many of us heard it differently at this meeting. So now we're in that quandary of, we've already voted and approved at the admin meeting, which put it on this agenda. So I just want to throw that out there, guys. The exact same item that he had before. It did go to admin and finance and now to this meeting. So are we hoping at the closed session we'll get better understanding of the numbers? I'm asking everybody. We got a motion and a second to push it, but we've already heard this at the admin committee. Are you wanting to push it to the next executive committee?
Again, Madam Chair, I'm not overly concerned whether it goes back to admin and finance. And I know some of us heard this, but again, today it sounds a whole lot different. So again, I think after we have closed session today, if folks are comfortable, we can bring it back to next executive committee unless the whole committee today is okay with it and someone wants to do a subsequent motion and move forward with this.
I think that people want more answers that have been shut down, unable to discuss because it ties to legal matters. So that's our situation right now. So do we need then, Mr. DeBond, to put this as an item on closed session so that some of those questions can be answered?
Yes, we can put this on the closed session. We would list all or most of the existing actions in the legal actions that we have on the closed session agenda, as well as for those that only claims have been filed, we would just, list anticipated litigation. I think we've done that before. So we can do that again.
The REN is not in closed session.
And then, we're talking, I'm only responding with regards to the HERO.
And Madam Chair, again, and we've done this before too, we can have closed session first and have it on the agenda And if it, you know, again, if it moves out of closed session, then we can still pass it in the next executive committee meeting.
You understanding, Andrew, since you're going to have to do the footwork on this?
Yes.
So to clarify, if I understand correctly, Madam Chair, the concept on the table is to move forward with an action today related to the REN, to pause the item related to the HERO budget amendment, have that heard at the April 4th meeting of the Executive Committee in closed session prior to open session, and still list this same item on the open session for the 4th.
Okay, the maker of the motion, and Brenda, are you okay with what was just shared? Brian?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mr. Dinko, you also had a comment. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for the attention to it. I appreciate it. I just it really surprised me on the jump. That's all. And I know it wasn't it's fine. No further comments.
Okay, so we will bring this back at the next April 4th executive meeting and do that first thing so that we get the answers so it doesn't conflict with anything else on the agenda. Okay. Janice, you got all that for the minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Roll call, please.
And is it, okay.
No, go on, Kurt, please.
No, you had it. You're fine. Excuse me.
City of Banning,
Just to be clear, the motion is to move it forward.
only the PACE budget amendment, the IREN item is being approved.
Okay, I will vote for approval, yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Yes.
Corona,
Yes.
Eastvale,
Yes.
Hemet,
Yes.
Aruba Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee.
Yeah.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Murrieta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar,
Yes.
County District 1.
No,
Is that no on both the IREN and the PACE?
it's not clear to me exactly what the motion is, and if there's two motions, it's a no. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. District 2,
Uh, Madam Chair, would you mind having that motion clarified? Because I thought we broke the two things apart and we were just voting on the second part of his budget explanation.
Yes, so that that was my understanding too, is that we are approving for the IREN so that that motion that we all voted on before for that contract can move forward while we
Right.
go back and review on the PACE, because there was questions about some of that around the HERO program. There was questions on some of that. So it was one motion that include the separation of the two. Is that what you got, Janice?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And Mr. Jeffries, is that still a no?
Yes.
Thank you,
It
sir.
remains a no.
Thank you, sir. District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Eastern Municipal Water District,
Yes.
and Western Municipal Water District.
Yes.
That concludes roll call vote for that item. Madam Chair, you're muted.
I'm glad you didn't hear what I just said. Anyway, I just said this to get any better than this. Okay, we are now on item 6D, and that's talking about in-person committee meetings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item is a follow-up from a conversation that has happened among many people, and most recently was raised by Member Denstead at the most recent Admin and Finance Committee. On the next slide, please. This is just intended to provide an opportunity to discuss the return to in-person meetings, the merits, the timing, the options. Next slide, please. You'll recall that before all the pandemic activities began, our default was in-person meetings. There was an option for telephonic meetings, video meetings, that sort of thing, but a very onerous process, very cumbersome. Lots of things that had to happen. In the early pandemic with the governor's executive order, it essentially made the telephonic concept very simple and very clean. Then with the expiration of that order and the execution of AB 361, it again tweaked things. So it allowed us to continue going forward as we are, only in certain conditions. There were some conditions related to public health that had to be met. Next slide. So as a reminder, as you're having the conversation, as the conversation has been relayed to me, part of it has been the policy question around convenience for remote versus in person. And part of it has been based on the concept of meeting the AB 361 requirements. As a reminder, for AB 361, those are related to public health rather than convenience. To the extent that those conditions do continue to exist, you have the option, if you choose to make the findings, to go the AB 361 route. In the event that those go away, you don't have that option. And until something else comes along, you essentially revert back to the old rules, which are generally in person. But again, even under the old rules, there is an option for you to meet remotely. However, you have to do a few different things, particularly with respect to posting of agendas, allowing public access at the same location where you plan to operate, and a little bit of geographic issues where we would have to have a majority of folks here in the WRCOG boundaries. Next slide. And with that, this item is just intended to be an open discussion. We're happy to answer any questions that may arise. And ultimately, we're seeking direction for any preference.
I see no hands. Isn't Mr. Washington?
Kurt, I just want to be clear. The new rules you're saying would require to allow for remote access to the meeting, but also, or a remote component of the meeting, but the public would have to be allowed to be at that remote location. And those locations need to be published at the time the agenda is published. I mean, that sounds kind of like just what we had before.
No, correct. So that's not new. That's the old rules. And
Yeah.
in the event AB 361 findings are not able to be made, that's what we would revert back to.
Okay.
So Kurt, since there's still a state emergency by the state, we will not do anything but say the next meetings until such time we change that will be in person, allowing for the opportunity if for some horrible reason we get a spike and things go backwards. But until then, until such time the state of emergency, this will change things if we give direction to schedule in person. Otherwise, we stay remote. Correct?
Right, with one caveat that, so the existence of the state of the emergency is only one part of the requirements under AB 361. So there's still a second and one of two options that has to be present. So at the moment, those conditions still exist, and you still have the ability to, in my opinion, to make the findings similar to what you have done today. Now, making those findings does not prohibit you from meeting in person. So in my mind, there's somewhat separate questions. So in the event that you made the findings for AB 361, like you did today, but chose to meet in person, I believe you have the option of doing both.
You do.
Okay.
Can we do hybrid?
I've got three people. Four people now. Mr. Barajas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's definitely value in being in the same room with each other, but I also, speaking from my own personal perspective, where I'm 5 minutes away from downtown Riverside. So I think while we're still able to give our member agencies the opportunity to be remote, I think we should make that a hybrid option for the time being, while we can still make those findings. Thank you.
Ms. Stenstadt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was my intention to have a discussion to make this into a hybrid option so that if people wanted to attend in person, they certainly could. I don't know about the public because half of the meetings that I attend are hybrid and the public is allowed to attend and half of them are not. So it was only my intention to give the option and offer that out for people who are kind of fatigued out on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Washington.
I thought maybe somebody else was ahead of me. I'm sorry. I'll be brief. I guess my sense is while we continue to look at what the pandemic numbers are, because Riverside County is still, is still experiencing cases and some deaths, although they've been down greatly. I wouldn't want it to be in person only because, I mean, all of us electeds love to be around people, right? We thrive on that. I'm boosted. I'm not worried about being around people, but I am worried about pressuring those who may be of a little bit more fragile health, who may not feel comfortable yet, that we at least offer a hybrid option.
Thank you. Supervisor Jeffries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm also supportive of the hybrid option. I don't understand why any government facility is closed at this point when virtually, if not all, nearly all of the private sector is wide open except for some government facilities. So I think we need to get to hybrid and get our doors open for taxpayers and citizens of this county.
Ms. Rogers.
Yes, I'm definitely in favor of the hybrid model. I personally are at very high risk for COVID, and I know it's still in effect. Just Friday night, we lost our former council member, Al Landers, who served the city of Paris for 18 years to COVID complications. So in light of that recent experience and also my own health needs, I would prefer the hybrid model. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? So the requested action is to provide direction for staff to regard scheduling of in-person. We're going to change that to schedule hybrid, correct? Do we need a
Yes.
motion for that, Janice, since it's a little bit different than the motion on the agenda or the recommendation?
Well, given that it's a specific requested action, but I would ask for legal counsel to weigh in on holding hybrid meetings.
Oh, well, we can certainly hold hybrid meetings. I think I think the board has provided us with sufficient direction. This is clearly an evolving area. So the flexibility of just direction as you provided is preferred.
So we need a motion on that, Mr. Devon?
No,
I'm sorry, no.
So we're all good. I've got what I need. We will plan to hold the next meeting as a hybrid here in this office unless we have too many people, and we may then request the county to help us out. But we're all good. We will go hybrid for the next meeting.
Everybody understand?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. We are now on item number 7. And this is from our TAC chair, Mr. Van Wagenen.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief. At the TAC, we had a couple of presentations from WRCOG on items that have come to the executive committee and on 2 items that will be coming before too long. One is on the trip origin destination assessment. The other was related to broadband. WRCOG staff is engaged in a broadband assessment and seeing how they can help the member agencies to chase all the funds as appropriate. And we're going to have another report at the TAC and give guidance and direction in another month or so. That's the update from the TAC.
Anybody have a question to Mr. Van Wagenen? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 8. This is committee reports. Mr. Tisdale, CalCog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So CalCog was supposed to meet today, but they did not. They canceled their meeting. Instead, they had a legislative committee, so they have their own legislative committee. So I will be reporting out on that also, since that's the direction that we're going. So as soon as I get the information, hopefully next meeting, I will be able to report on what they talked about today. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Reese, Sendak.
Thank you. So it has been 20 years of the Borders Committee, and that's what we discussed in the last meeting. It was quite interesting. You know, we talked about the southern border, but we also talked about the border between Riverside County and San Diego County. Also the borders to the tribal nations as well. But it was quite interesting to listen to the history and see the full complexity of how it was built, and such a treat for me to be able to see it and try and understand where they're coming from. So that's all for them.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Mr. Hoffman, Tapa, Noel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just so everybody knows, the deadline for Proposition 1 funds for the water projects is due March 25th, and our next OA meeting will be on March 24th. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Benoit, AQMD.
Yeah, no major updates from AQMD this month. We had our meeting last week, excuse me, but no major updates.
And anybody from SCAG want to have a report? I think Arnold already mentioned about the upcoming regional General Assembly, which I'll go into my report then. Janice, there's quite a few things in the chat. If you can make sure on our debriefing of the agenda that we get, include that information from Aaron and Arnold and Chandra. There's some good information there. If we can just get that all out of the chat box, that'd be great.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was all I had. Kurt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I submitted my report in writing for the sake of time. Happy to answer any questions if anyone has them, but if not, I would just refer you to the written document.
Anybody have questions for Kurt? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to anybody have any items for future agendas? Okay. Anybody have any general announcements? Lost the energy now, huh? Okay, let's go on into closed session. It's maybe a few minutes. Sorry about that, guys.
Just for the announcement, we have closed session litigation for 3 cases related to the HERO program. We have a matter related to conference with real property negotiator regarding the office lease, and 2 matters that are related to a public employee performance evaluation for the executive director and labor negotiator direction, again, for the executive director. So Janice, you'll remove
Yes, I'll start.
those that are not to be attended.
Yes.
Not to attend.
And
Thank
we
you.
have no anticipated report out from closed session, so I'll be stopping the recording.